Hi, guys. How are you doing out there in the world, quarantined on lockdown, social distancing in this moment of crisis? ENN is here to be your faithful companion, to shed some positive vibes in your life. I am very excited to bring you episode number 26 of the Exiles Network News Podcast. And I am joined by my homies, my good friends. These guys, they give me so much joy, so much life. Christian and Paul. Hey guys.
Dude, that's hard to live up to. You say
No,
stuff.
it's true. It's the absolute truth. You guys are so amazing. Like this little community that we have going, this little thing we got going it's been such a positive light in my life, and I'm happy to share it with our audience. How are you guys doing?
Well, I am, dude. It's the love. I feel I share the love of both of you guys too. But yeah, man, that's hard to live up to.
It's just real.
It's a
Hey
tall
Paul.
task for sure. Hey guys. Yeah.
Okay, so we have episode 26 of ENN. We are rolling along, and in this time of quarantine and lockdown and social distancing and a bit of isolation, we're going to have a lot more time to put out a lot more content. So make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on Vero, and we'll just keep on like putting out as much stuff as possible to keep you company and to entertain you. So this is going to be like the first week in which we've released multiple episodes of ENN, and for the foreseeable future, we're going to try to put out as much as we can. You'll definitely get at least one a week, but some weeks, for as long as we have the time to do it, we'll be able to put out multiple for you. So the format is going to be a little bit different. Normally, we're very structured with how we go into topics, but this is going to be more of a freestyle. We're just going to have freewheeling, free dealing conversation about everything that's going on, everything that's going on in our lives, everything that's going on in entertainment media, and we're just going to discuss it in a roundtable format. So welcome to episode 26 of ENN once again. So let's start with Paul. Paul, what's good? What's good with you? What's good with things that have been going on in entertainment media? Let's have a discussion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we talked in the last episode about what we've been watching. So, in terms of what we've missed in the news, over the last few weeks, well, we've all been sort of distracted with the lockdown and the changing environment we're living in. I started looking back, what haven't we had a chance to talk about? And for me, I mean, the big thing that jumps out to me is the BvS live director's commentary with Zack Snyder on Vero. That was the piece that sticks out for me as a Snyder fan and a fan of the DC films, especially Snyder's films. That's what brought the most excitement to me over the last few weeks, and was something I looked forward to, and I think it was a unique experience for his fandom, and certainly made news in the larger movie news industry as a whole. Additionally, we got a few other topics that I think grabbed my interest. The appointment of Jason Kilar as CEO of Warner Media effective May 1st, and the fact that he liked a couple of Release the Snyder Cut tweets jumped out at me. We can talk about that later. Ray Fisher did a live stream on Twitch, didn't give a lot of warning. I missed it myself. I think he gave like 30 minutes notice. I would have been there had I known about it, but some good information came out of that. We've had some interesting news from Grace Randolph and David Ayer, sort of giving validation to some of the theories of about Jeff Johns and his role in the sabotage of the DC film universe. We've had news about the Matt Reeves Batman film, and then we've had countless Twitter quarantine watch parties, sort of piggybacking off. I think Lee Winnell was the first one, and then a number of directors have since done their versions of it. So there's been a lot of news, but as I say, for me, the big one was the BvS live director's commentary, and that's the one I think I was most invested in of all this, and the one I think that probably warrants the most excitement and discussion. Were you guys able to partake in that one, to watch that live or after the fact, either on Vero or YouTube?
Absolutely. For me, I was there from like second one until close to the end, where I kind of my connection got off, And then it was really exciting to watch because it's something I had been sort of craving for such a long time. I'd been like, oh, when are we going to get a director's commentary for this film? Because Zack has done a director's commentary for some of his more notable films. There is one for 300. Definitely, I've seen that one. There's one for Man of Steel, but it's in a different format. It's a video extra on the Blu-ray. If you have the Blu-ray, it's one of the extra features. And anyway, I'd been for years, I'd asked, him about it, asked Larry Fong, and, the thing about it is that with the reputation that Batman v Superman had, the unfair reputation it had in entertainment media, not necessarily in the box office that it did or amongst its very vital fan base, the studio hasn't really wanted to invest more money in that. And if it was done officially, the director would most likely be paid for his time, and editor would be paid for their time. They will have to, print new copies of a Blu-ray, do a little bit of marketing. There's some funds that'll be put into it. And so it seemed like they were just content to just let the movie be as it is and, let it, sell to its fans as it is and let that be that. But Zack found a clever way around it, because if you saw, in the commentary, he wasn't able to, focus the camera on the movie as it plays, because that would run into like legal copyright issues. And someone, I do not know who started doing this, but I know that Grace Randolph made it popular, at least among streamers, in terms of doing a watch along through a whole movie, and all, they just being very smart about focusing the camera on the person, making sure the audience has the timing right, and having an effective commentary like that. And honest to God, it's smooth and it's well done. And there is a little bit of there's an insider tidbit I want to give people. So the way it is, Vero has a copy of it. You can find it on their website. Also, you can find it on YouTube. So you can have it playing on YouTube as you watch the film, wherever else you watch it. So you need to have two screens going. But I'm not saying that I've done it, or I know anyone that has done it, or I own a copy of it. But I'm saying it is quite possible that out there, someone stitched his audio to a good copy of the film, and you have a director's commentary of Batman v Superman playing under the film as it actually runs through. It's possible that that's out there. And if it's out there, it's an amazing thing. It's something that I would absolutely love to have in my collection, and something that I would watch from time to time if it was out there and if I had it in my possession. I'm not saying either of those things.
You know what? That shouldn't be too hard.
About.
That shouldn't be too hard to actually put together. Now that you think about it, and oddly enough, I'm surprised that didn't cross my mind, because, like you say, I just assumed if I want to watch the two together, I'll put the audio on through through a speaker and watch the film on low volume, right? Which is what I did during the live stream. I had the film going on my TV, and I had his live stream connected, via Bluetooth through one of my to an Alexa speaker in my kitchen, so I could listen to it while I was watching. But that's not a bad idea. Why not splice the two together, and then you've got a single copy you can watch. And
I'm not saying that anything like that exists, or someone has done it or not done it or whatever.
But if they had,
if they had, then after we get off, I will be able to send you a link, but only if something like that
if it exists.
And I'm not saying that it exists.
Good to know. I appreciate you keeping me in mind if such a thing ever comes around. I really enjoyed that director's commentary. No, I was not. I'm not typically a huge director's commentary kind of guy. Like I like the idea of them, but when I look at all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've bought over the years, and how many actually have director's commentaries, and how many of those director's commentaries I've actually sat down and watched, it's a very small number. And how many have I actually watched beginning to end? It may be zero. This is the first time I think I've actually sat down and listened to a director's commentary beginning to end, and this is on a 3-hour movie. And you know what? I enjoyed it. I mean, partly because I enjoy the film so much, but partly because I really enjoy listening to Zack Snyder speak. And in 3 hours, I don't know that we got that much new information. He might have repeated some things that we already suspected or already knew, but there was a couple of pieces of new information, but it's just nice to see him relaxed and talking with his fans. And I think, one of the things I took away from it was just his sense of humor about the Batman killing. I mean, that was, for me, one of the highlights. Like, the number of times he said, "Oh, these guys, don't worry, these guys are fine." Like that was one of the highlights for me. Just sitting there, listening to him talk about the movie, throwing in little tidbits of information, where he could, and just going through it with his fans. I thought it was just a genuinely fun and interesting way to watch the movie. With someone that obviously poured a lot of themselves into this film and didn't receive the critical reception I'm sure that he was expecting, or that fans of the film would have expected or would have wanted for the film. And it's nice to see him be able to relax and share that with the people that love and appreciate this film. And I thought it was a unique experience, and one that you don't have to pay for. I mean, all you have to do is pop your Blu-ray in, or if you have a digital copy, pop it in. And he took the time to make sure everyone had time to sync up at the beginning, and gave you a few extra seconds to get the leaf on the Warner Brothers logo lined up just right, so when you hit play, we're all in the same place. And I thought it was a great, fun experience to share, not only with him but with the fandom. I don't know what Christian. I take it you probably didn't get a chance to catch this, or have you got a chance to catch any of the highlights that came out of it?
I've caught highlights. I mean, before anybody says I'm a Zack Snyder hater or a DCEU hater or something like that, I rarely listen to directors' commentaries, and that's with Christopher Nolan, Mangold, guys that I love. I have. It's not like I never have, but it's just not my thing. And I don't nearly love Batman versus Superman enough to sit there for 3 hours and listen to Zack Snyder talk about it. I just don't.
Not for everyone. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, no way. There's no way I could do it. I did check out a chunk of highlights there on YouTube, and my mutuals were talking about it, so I saw a bunch of YouTube clips going around. And hey, for the most part, guys, I smiled. When I saw what he was saying and I heard what he was talking about, I smiled a couple of times. I rolled my eyes and was like, "All right, great, Zack." But but that's cool. That's art, right? So, but I, as a non-fan talking, I think this was a really nice thing to do, especially during this crisis, for multiple reasons. It's just great because I think that the release the Snyder Cut community, you guys have become kind of like a quasi mini family. And it's really, many of you, I know there's splinter groups and stuff, and some groups kind of go off and do their whatever. But the reality is you guys really, you're all fighting for the same thing. You're very passionate. And a lot of you have gotten connected because of that group. And Zack's the guy. It's his vision. It's his everything. So this was a wonderful way, I think, for him to interact with the fans who are just as passionate as him. He's passionate about what he's done, and you guys are passionate about his work. And technology today has given us this opportunity to not have to do what Lupe just talked about at the beginning, to spend a ton of money, go back to Warner Brothers and have them lay down a commentary track and blah, blah, blah. He can do this. And he could just say, "Hey, man, join me on social media. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying I'm going to be talking about my movie." And it's perfect. So I think that it works. And if you guys are fans, and I've seen that we all, not just me, all of us have seen now these directors do this, and especially in this quarantine time, if this is your thing and you're a fan of that particular director, come on, man, this is wonderful. What a great way to interact with that person and interact with your fans. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Lupe, what were your biggest takeaways from this? I mean, there was a few things that caught my attention, and a few things that, I always kind of felt it was nice to hear him put into words. But did anything really shock you or surprise you coming to this, that new information?
For me, it's refreshing to know that a lot of the things that we have as a fandom have theorized and hypothesized about the film, its messages, its storytelling techniques, its subtext, its context, its overt text, were all correct. I mean, we have been laughed at for it. We've been ridiculed. Batman Superman. It's not as deep as you guys think it is. It's just a dumb movie. Ha ha ha. Martha, we've really
Martha, yeah.
yeah we've
Haha,
had
Martha.
yeah we've had mud thrown at us. We've been bullied. We've been ridiculed online, and it's it, that validation from the creator himself to say all these things that we've known for so long. People who don't like Lex, we've known why the Lex looks like that. Like, this is a Lex. The reason why he's not bald and you don't recognize that is because earlier in the comics he had red hair. We're not reaching, or we're not trying to justify something that's wrong. We're relaying, the reason for things. The reason why he acts like this is because he's intellectually superior. That's why he talks like this, and he doesn't care if you understand him. He wants to confuse you and confound you with philosophy and religion and art and politics and his dialogue to leave you in the dust. And for Zack Snyder to just come online and say all that stuff that we've been ruminating about and talking about for years, it was very heartwarming. It was a little bit, I don't want to say emotional, but this movie, it means a lot to a lot of people in terms of it's one of my favorite movies of all time, top 2, top 3 of all time. And with the torrid, contentious, environment that we've had to endure loving this film, there was a little bit of an emotional aspect to coming together and celebrating it in this way, and the creator validating a lot of our commentary on the film back to us. There was this sort of experience that was cyclical in terms of the creator giving us energy and us giving energy back to the creator. And I thought that was beautiful. The only thing that was brand new to me and I just thought was really cool was when he said that Superman's scream when Doomsday impales him awoke mother boxes around the earth, and that's what is the catalyst for Steppenwolf saying there's no Kryptonia here. So it seems mother boxes had been monitoring the presences on the earth, and they were aware that this Superman guy is here, so you guys might not want to invade right now. You might just want to pump the brakes because Superman is here. And when it was out of the way, I thought that was cool. But I always did notice in the film that you hear a kind of his voice when he screams. There's a change in tone to it. It sounds a little bit metallic,
subtle echo almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that for me, that was the big takeaway too. Like in terms of new information, that was the piece that made me say, wow. And not only because he's telling you it wakes up the mother boxes, but then the implications for what that might have, the implications that might have on the Justice League Snyder cut. Because we know that with Man of Steel, BvS picks up reliving the climactic battle of Man of Steel. And there's always been speculation that that Justice League would pick up from where BvS left off with the climactic battle of BvS. And I think there's certainly an interesting case to be made that maybe perhaps this is how Justice League starts off, reliving Superman's death and the scream that awakens the mother boxes. It would make a lot of sense, especially with the unfinished photo of Superman impaled on one of Doomsday's spikes, which Snyder shared on Vero. It's a scene from BvS, but from a different angle that was never shown in BvS, and it was something Snyder posted on Vero with unfinished VFX. And it would not surprise me in the least if Justice League were to start off reliving that moment, showing the awakening of the mother boxes, and leading into that. And Snyder separately confirmed that in a comment on one of his Vero posts that the no Kryptonians, no Lanterns line was Steppenwolf reporting to Desaad specifically in the first act of the film. Now, he didn't say where in the first act of the film, and in a 3-hour, 34-minute film, I mean, there's a lot of room in that first act, but it would not shock me if it was early on, right?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And also, just before you go on, that confirms one of our scoops, as you might call it. One of the important bits of information that we relayed was that Desaad, there was an actor that was cast as Desaad in a speaking role. Okay, in a speaking role in Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, and that was a bit of information that we shared with the fandom, an exclusive scoop from us, and this confirms that Steppenwolf spoke to Desaad about this, and it's just for anyone who's a fan of like the Justice League and the New Gods and Darkseid and it's just an Apocalypse and Desaad and Calibac, and if you know those characters, like Zack Snyder was opening up this world in such an incredible way, your mind would have been blown. I'm telling you, like there is nothing on the Marvel side. Sorry to pit them one against the other, but they are competing franchises. And there is, in terms of what we lost, there's nothing on the Marvel side that compares to the lore and the legacy of the New Gods. And it's interesting because Kevin Feige is going to try to do that in a modern day using the Eternals. And I see he's been piggybacking off Jack Kirby. That's interesting, whatever. But guys, like we were in for a treat in terms of the future, but even for when the cut comes out, it's going to be a treat.
Well, it's pretty. Go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say it's just more evidence of the grandeur of the plan that was sacrificed in order to simplify, and that's because, I mean, again, it goes back to all that blogger feedback and all these narratives that there's too much going on. We need to keep this simple, lighthearted fun, and they cut all the all this incredible world building that Snyder was setting up, this explosion of DC world building. They said, no, we don't want any of that. Make this simple. Turn this into a DC animated film, because look, our DC animated films get praised like crazy. People always say how great the DC animated universe is. Let's scale this back and make it simple. And the DC animated stuff is more complex than what we got in Whedon's Justice League. So you've got Peter Guinness, who is Desaad, cut. You got Volko, cut. You've got Iris West, cut. You've got Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, cut.
Darkseid himself.
Darkseid himself, cut. Yeah, I mean the obvious one, like so many of these characters, and even one of them cut is notable. But when you cut like 5, 6, 7 of these characters, not to mention the Cyborg origin story getting cut, it's just there's so much going on, and so much more to this film, right? That should have been there, and hopefully will still be there for us to see when it finally gets released. It's just mind blowing, and it just goes back to that whole Jeff Johns, and we'll talk about this, when we get to some of the other topics. But Jeff Johns coming in to say, I know better, and I know how to rescue this, and doing that by dumbing it down, and for what,
It's fascinating.
What have to say, yeah.
It's fascinating, as a comic book fan too, because exactly what you guys just said. It's tough. You don't want to pit Marvel versus DC, but it's been like that ever since we were kids. It's always been Marvel versus DC. And kids are, I like Superman, I like Spider-Man. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been like that. and Darkseid could beat up Thanos and all those conversations, right?
Who's faster, Flash or Superman? That kind of childish bullshit. And hey, you know what? They served us up a big dose of that.
When we're kids, it wasn't toxic.
Well, that's the other. I mean, in the schoolyard, it was kind of fun and it was joy. But going back to what you said, it's interesting. People forget that DC, while they have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Holy Trinity, and people are like, well, I remember 1960s Batman, I remember Christopher Reeve Superman, I remember Linda Carter playing Wonder Woman and stuff, and they have all that. If you are a comic book fan, in many ways, if you're going to take the characters as a whole, a lot of the Marvel characters are better. But the world that DC has built is deeper. It goes back to like mythology, like a lot of Greek Roman mythology. Superman has so many religious references. You guys just talked about the New Gods. There's so much going on with DC. It's pretty incredible, and they have so much lore that they could build, that they could really go into. Marvel's more galactic. Marvel's more cosmic. Marvel, it's always been like that. They're more about outer space and sci-fi and fantasy. Yeah. But DC's always been about something a little
Mythology.
darker. Yeah, absolutely.
Mythology, and you know what, I love that stuff, and the older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated that, because when I was a kid, I was more of a Marvel kid. I mean, I always liked Batman, but my things, I mean, I collected comics in the late 80s, and I collected Batman, I collected Spider-Man, I collected Punisher, Wolverine, and X-Men, and sometimes Justice League and sometimes Green Lantern, but those other ones were my big ones, and it was more Marvel leaning. But as I've gotten older, you know, I've appreciated more and more the ties to religion and mythology that come with DC, as opposed to just sort of simple space fantasy that you get.
And I think there's
the
sides
MCU.
to that, because like I know like the X-Men are they're ridiculous when it comes to the way that their allegories for civil rights, for teenage angst, for rebellious, for people that are underserved, all that. I think that there are sections of the Marvel universe that do, but like Guardians of the Galaxy, not really. You know,
Well, and I don't consider X-Men, you know, now when we talk about Marvel, I don't consider X-Men Marvel anymore because they're not MCU, even though the X-Men is obviously Marvel. I've created a distinction in my head now because things have become so focused on the cinematic universes.
Yeah, I think you got to separate comic from movies. You really do.
But
really
I think what most people talk about now is movies. Movies, right?
I mean,
that's what makes money.
Sony Marvel and Disney Marvel are different things, right?
Yeah, that's a fact that we just have to deal with. That the reach of films is greater than the reach of comic books. It's just a fact.
It's a fact.
If you look at the number of comics sold versus the number of movie tickets sold for a Justice League title, for even Justice League that bombed, sold more than the highest selling Justice League comic book of like the past even 20 years, I'd say. The highest one past 20 years. So
650 million at the box office is not nothing. It's a disappointment, and the movie was a disappointment because partly because of its quality, but more so because of what it represents and what it could have been. But 650 million, I mean, there's a lot of movies that'd be real happy with 650 million. You know, it's still a huge title, right? It's just
unless you're, it's exactly what you guys said. It was still a disappointment because it was supposed to be a tentpole. That was supposed to be their Avengers level movie that should have made $1 billion. And what you guys are saying is correct. And it's unfortunate too. On top of that, while many of me still exist, I don't read every comic that comes out. I don't. I follow the X-Men line. I follow 1 or 2 DC lines. That's basically it. And then I collect. That's what I do. I collect. And most of the stuff that I read over that I'm following is digital, and I collect the physical. What we just are experiencing right now with COVID-19, man, this is going to be tough, I think, for the actual comic industry to come out physically. I think digital is what's going to continue, and that's where you're going to see a lot of these stories. But what you guys are saying is 100% right. The studios, the people that own the IP, the ones that own the intellectual property, they want to make money on it. And how do you make money right now? It's movies and streaming. That's it. That's where you're making your money. So yeah, you guys are right. It's sad because I would rather see the comics, but it's the movies that make the money. So yeah.
And I mean, and from my point was not to knock the comics in any. It was just simply that because of the proliferation of the films and the very different feel to Disney Marvel versus what was MCU Phase 1 under Paramount versus Fox Marvel, which was the X-Men films and Fox Marvel, the X-Men films, and then Sony. They all have different feels, and I much preferred what Fox was doing with the X-Men or Sony was doing, earlier on with what Sony was doing with Spider-Man, and in hindsight, actually I like the what's his name? Not Maguire, Garfield. I actually I like the Garfield Spider-Man movies more now than I did when they first came out. I wasn't ready for a reboot when they came out. Now I appreciate those movies more for what they are. But I would take what Sony was doing with Spider-Man, and I would take what Fox was doing with the X-Men over what Marvel has or what MCU has done with Marvel. So I see them as 3 different branches. What Disney has done with Marvel. I would take those as 3 different branches, or even 4 if you consider Phase 1 Marvel is separate from Phase 1 MCU is separate from Phases 2 and 3, right? So, I mean, it's just Marvel's got all these branches, right? And unfortunately, the version I like the least is the one that's gained the most widespread popularity. So, but I don't see Marvel as one homogenous thing anymore. I guess is sort of the point I was going for.
Yeah, they've collected more and more now underneath their umbrella, which for me is perfectly fine. But they still, they're splintered, and and those older universes too. They don't disappear. They're still there for people to enjoy. You know, you want to watch it on Blu-ray, you want to download the digital, they're still there. They're not going anywhere. It's like if you like a movie from the 1970s and the 1980s, you're still going to watch it. But that universe may end. That's if you're a fan of that, it's sad. And of course, it goes to the larger conversation of what you guys have talked about with the destruction of Justice League, and based on what people out there in the blogosphere and the Twitter sphere and everything else were doing, and drove the conversation in a direction that it probably didn't need to go, which is sad. I agree. Because Lupe and I have talked about this numerous times. Multiple types, multiple interpretations should exist because they do in the comics, they do in books, they do in cartoons. So why shouldn't they in movies? You know, so I've always supported that. I may like one way better. That does not mean that another way should not exist. That to me is ridiculous. Absolutely. Yeah, that clamps down.
I'm the same way. I might not be the biggest Marvel fan,
right?
But I'm okay with the Marvel Cinematic Universe existing. Now, I would say that I'm not a fan of Spider-Man joining the MCU and X-Men joining the MCU just because of the homogeneity of their style. I liked it when there was a style for the X-Men movies, there was a style for Marvel's movies, there was a style for Sony's Spider-Man movies, and then DC had its own style. I like variety. I don't like everything to be the same, but I would never say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe should not exist or it should not exist as it is. As a matter of fact, I don't even want them to make their movies like the way DC under Zack Snyder made his movies, because if all movies were like that, then none of them is special. None of them is more interesting than the other. And you can't have, really rich, diverse conversations about the layers of films and the way things are tackled differently. Homogeneity isn't good. And the thing with the DC films was that the conversation was simply, Marvel is doing it better and you guys are terrible. The film is terrible. Your interpretations are bad and we're going to bash everything. Blah, blah, blah. Why can't you be like Marvel? Or Marvel is just the best at everything. And it's just,
that's the problem.
It's an unfortunate episode, very unfortunate. Because up until Justice League, no matter what anyone wants to tell you, DC was a potent rival for the MCU. They were neck and neck in terms of like, when Batman v Superman came out, don't forget that movie made like $170 something million with bad reviews on its first weekend. It nearly made $200 million with bad reviews on its first weekend. Wonder Woman did gangbusters. Suicide Squad did incredible numbers, even with bad reviews. Like, if you look at the trajectory of the first films in the franchises, DC was actually making more money in terms of how much money have you made by your fifth film. DC had made more, much more than Marvel had made. And with what happened to Justice League, it immediately just destroyed the DC brand. Like, from that point, there was no competition. It wasn't like, oh, anybody can, actually stand up and say DC is competing with Marvel. It's not even a rivalry anymore. Now it's like...
Well, the most amazing thing is, they came in to save the universe by butchering Justice League to make it more like a Marvel movie. And it failed so badly that no one's ever even talked about a Justice League 2. Like, when was the last time you heard anyone express any interest in a Justice League sequel other than a sequel to Snyder's Justice League that we never got to see, right? Like, there was a brief moment, I think, right after the movie came out where people said, "Oh, maybe we'll get to see Justice League versus the Legion of Doom," because they've, they obviously intended to abandon Snyder's whole Dark Side thing. And then that disappeared within like a month after the movie, and I've never heard anyone mention it since. It's just killed the universe.
Yeah, they just killed it. But we've talked a lot about that commentary. Yeah. Let's move on to your next topic, Paul, if you have something else.
Yeah, no, there's lots. So So, I mean, this is a quick one. Little note from last week I thought was interesting. Jason Kilar was appointed the CEO of Warner Media.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's, I think, coming on effective May 1st, so he hasn't started yet. He's going to be coming in just as HBO Max is taking off. It's going to be launching in May, assuming there's no delays. I don't know if any of their content's going to be delayed because of because of the production shutdowns related with COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
But he's coming in, I guess, to as CEO, just as you know, their big streaming product is launching, and presumably he's not had a lot of input in that. He's had similar high profile jobs at other companies. I believe he's been with Hulu, and I don't know, Lupe, if you're more familiar with his
Yes.
resume.
Amazon.
Yes. Yeah,
Amazon as well.
he's a founding CEO of Hulu.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was with Amazon. This guy, he's an interesting dude. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Good.
Continue. He's an interesting dude. Go ahead.
Please.
Oh, well, I mean, it for me, I'll let you guys talk because I think this affects you probably in terms of Snyder Cut coming out more than it affects me. But I see this as something positive. You're looking at a guy that gets new media. I
Mm-hmm.
think he understands new media. As a basically a founding CEO with Hulu, he was deeply involved in Amazon. He oversaw Hulu as the joint venture. I believe it was like NBC Universal, ABC News Corp. That's how it started before it morphed into Disney and everything and all these other companies that had a hand in Hulu. The guy was Vessel is an old subscription video service, and so this is a guy that I really believe understands the relationship between new media and the way you get it to the masses, the way you get different pieces of digital media and the way people are consuming digital media now. This to me is a positive force for guys like you that are really been fighting for the Snyder Cut. Doesn't mean it's a slam dunk that it's coming out tomorrow, but I don't see this as anything but a positive if you're going to focus on that. Absolutely. So, and it's probably good for Warner as a whole to have a guy like that sees things with a forward-looking, mindset like him. So I'll throw it back to you guys.
Just
Go ahead,
before Paul gets into the Snyder Cut stuff that's attached to this, just speaking on the person and comparing it to the brass at WB right now.
Mm-hmm.
So WB is one of my favorite film studios of all time. If you look at their history, they have a history of being the ones who make sort of like these edgy, more mature, darker, prestige films. They've been pioneers ever since the days of film noir. They, with films like Casablanca. Think of, directors today, your favorite noir directors like Fincher and Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder, people like that. Those are Warner Brothers type of directors, and those are the films that they make. And I see them as a great counterbalance to a corporation like Disney. And then I see like
was them too, right? Didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every single Christopher Nolan movie is Warner Brothers.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. And also Clint Eastwood's like recent output ever since about the mid 90s or something like that. But it's a studio that's been described as a director's studio. That means that they like to hire auteur directors with a very strong individual creative voice that may be very different from what is popular, might be esoteric, might be unusual, but is highly crafty and highly prestige. And they give those directors a playground with which to express their creativity and support them as much as possible. That has been their history until recently. And in recency, I'm talking about with Batman v Superman and the backlash to that and the rise in prominence of Disney being a force that has influenced the industry so much with all their movies being these, sorry to put it this way, but generic mass marketed tentpole movies, 4-quadrant tentpole movies making gazillions of dollars. It's put pressure on other studios to be like, why aren't you making that money? So studios have been forced to kind of change some things they do a little bit to sort of, try and compete with them. But anyway, the last president of Warner Brothers, the film studio, was before that was Greg Silverman. And then after that comes in a guy called Toby Emmerich, and Toby Emmerich is not a good creative guy. He's a good numbers guy, and he worked a New Line where they were known to bring films in under budget, make films cheap, market them cheap, and then turn out as much revenue as possible to give it a good profit margin. So they made low budget, cheap horror films, and the return ended up being big. So that's what he's known for. But in terms of creativity, in terms of prestige filmmaking, in terms of the artistry of film, he is not strong in that. You can, whoever's listened to this, go do your research on it. I've done a lot of research on it. Greg Silverman is someone that I admire greatly. He's the person that locked Christopher Nolan into his first look deal at Warner Brothers. He's the same person that locked he didn't lock Clint Eastwood in, but he was close to Clint Eastwood and sort of made sure that, you know, he stayed at Warner Brothers. He also brought Steven Spielberg in for Ready Player One, a deal that, you know, they didn't think could be made. He's the one that started the DCEU, and the DCEU that, you know, that Zack Snyder was going to bring in, that was going to be a prestige, kind of very mature, alternative take on superheroes. This was like his brainchild. He was the one that was saying, we're going to do this. We're going to tackle these existential, larger than life, big ideas. They're going to be, you know, edgier than, you know, usual. So that's to say that I've been very concerned about the leadership at Warner Brothers. I feel like they haven't had anyone who's, one, both strong on the creative side, and in a changing world where streaming is becoming a really big thing, and
Exactly.
where, you know, as I said, new media, the landscape is changing. You have to be agile, you have to be flexible, you have to be very forward thinking. That's something that Warner Brothers lacked for a long time. And although I love Warner Brothers, I know that about them. They were not as forward thinking as Disney, and Disney has been very agile, very smart, really forward thinking, and that's why they've been able to dominate. HBO Max that's coming out, if AT&T hadn't acquired Warner Brothers, HBO Max would not have come out at the time it's coming out. Mm-hmm. AT&T basically forced the studio to do it. They actually let go a lot of great creatives that had been in there for a long time, who were used to the old ways of doing things and weren't very willing to change. So this guy coming in has a history at Amazon, which is a tech company, then has a history at Hulu from its inception. And if you see the shows that Hulu has put out there, things like, you know, The Handmaid's Tale, like things like Castle Rock, award-winning shows, and they've been a player in this space from the beginning. I think that it's going to be really, really, really good for the company going forward. And one thing we always say, just to wrap this up, I know I've been going on for a while. One thing we always say is that with the potency of the Release the Snyder Cut movement and followers, and how, you know, a hashtag can have close to 1 million retweets and mentions, like that's so much potency right there. Like, a lot of us are thinking, like, you're a company that's supposed to be a money-making company. How can you monetize this? How can you ignore this asset? And I always say, no matter what I say about Disney, if Disney had the Release the Snyder Cut movement, they would make billions off of it. They're smart like that. They're business savvy. And someone like him is the type of person that would not see the amount of support Release the Snyder Cut has and let it be a wasted asset. So I hand it on to back to Paul. This Mr. Kalar, like, this is like really, really, really good news. And also, he's like an edgy kind of guy, a risk taker. There's even an episode in his life where he was talking about new media and being very bullish on it. And he put out a memo, and in the memo, he completely blasted and dissed all the people who were holding on to old media, and it made a lot of Hollywood executives upset, and they were going to blackball him, and his career was going to be ruined. But I think he made amends, and, you know, he's forging forward.
Yeah. So Lupe, I think you did a great job of covering that. I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot more for me to add. I think the interesting twist to this, aside from the fact that he's new blood, which is always a good thing at Warner Brothers, flushing out the old that was responsible for the decision making, and most of them are gone, but Toby Emmerich is the big one that's still there. But anytime you bring in someone that outranks Toby Emmerich, new blood, that's forward thinking, it gives you hope, right? And as with when Ann Sarnoff came on, we went out of our way to write the letter writing campaign. We welcomed her online on Twitter. We sent her letters after she'd had a little time to settle in, expressing our hope that she would see fit to release a Snyder Cut. Of course, we greeted Jason Kilar the same way. Warner Media sent out a tweet April 1st announcing him as new CEO effective May 1st. And right on cue, the Snyder Cut fandom came in with congratulatory tweets. And one of the first ones was from someone named Abubakar, and they said, "Hey, Jason Kilar, congratulations! Now release the Snyder Cut," which he liked. Now you could say he's just liking the congratulations, but a subsequent tweet screen captured that and said, "A big congratulations to Jason Kilar on the new Warner's Media promotion. I think he knows what he's doing," and it took a screen capture of him liking the tweet from Abubakar. Jason Kilar then went and liked that tweet as well. So I think that kind of proves that it wasn't just an inadvertent like. He knew what he's liking, and that's a good sign, right? I mean, we have to hold on to little pieces of hope, but that's not a mistake. When you like a tweet saying release a Snyder Cut, and then like another tweet screen capturing that you liked release a Snyder Cut, I think that says something, right? So it's a good sign, I think, and so let's hope for the best. But I thought that was a positive piece of news, not necessarily conclusive, but certainly a reason for optimism, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
So I have a couple topics to talk about. One that I think is an interesting one to talk about is Quibi, or is it Quibi? Have you guys heard of?
I would have said Quibi. I've not heard any. My assumption was Quibi.
I'll say Quibi. So it's Quibi, and it's a mobile app, and it's a streaming app, and it's configured for mobile devices. So there's a couple things that make it stand apart from other streaming apps, stand apart from your Netflix and your Amazon Prime and your Apple TV, blah blah blah, wompty whoomp. It's the series on it are bite-sized, so they're about sometimes like even 10 minutes long. So they come out like every Wednesday, and it's just like a quick 10-minute episode that you can watch like while you're waiting for your lunch at a restaurant, or you're taking your lunch break or something like that. Or you're commuting on the train, when things get back to normal, I guess. So there's that. Then every single show is formatted for both portrait mode and for landscape mode. So if you rotate the camera into portrait mode, the aspect ratio will switch. It will still fill up the screen, but it's both shot and formatted in a way that it doesn't look awkward, and you still get a good enough visual relay of the information that's going on the screen, and the composition of characters and objects in the frame or whatever. And so they have a bunch of new shows. What surprised me, so I downloaded it. That's the first thing. There's a free trial, a 3-month free trial before they begin to charge you. The rate is, so that there are 2 levels to it. There's $7.99 for an ad-free version, and then there's $5.99 for an ad-included version. But the ad-included version doesn't actually include a lot of ads. They say it's something about like 2.5 minutes for every 100 hours you watch of ad. So that's not bad at all for a $5.99 streaming service. The only then also good things that I'll say about it also is that series that they have on there have like really big stars. Like they're not coming like half cocked or with the clip half empty. No, these guys, they're shooting the big guns. Like I'm talking about, like they have stars who have been wondering, like for example, like Sophie Turner. She has a series on there, and she's an actress that I think is an incredible young talent, and I've been wondering why she hasn't, done anything like on Netflix or on Amazon or on Disney Plus or on, any of the bigger guys. And then she comes on this little Quibi app. So yeah, there's a ton of big, stars on there. I can't recall any names right now. I apologize. But so that's dope. And then it seems like the quality of the shows is actually like good. Although now going to the downside, you can't cast this to your TV without going through some pirated mods. There is no, natural way or intuitive way, like just, click a button, it discovers your television and then casts it on there. There's no way to do that to watch shows on your television
So
or
you
on an
can't
iPad.
download this Quibi app on your like Roku
No,
or Fire
can't.
TV stick or
Nope.
PS whatever. No.
No, it's a mobile app and a mobile app only. And then also, although the price is $5.99 for the ad free, because you're getting shows that are a fraction of the time investment for bigger streaming services, big TV streaming services, and also the aspect ratio itself is a fraction. It is quite literally. You kind of feel like you should be paying a proportionate fraction. And $7.99 for ad free. Meanwhile, Netflix is about $9.99 and $12.99, approaching 15. Disney Plus is cheap. Amazon Prime is not that expensive. Apple TV is really, really, really like affordable. And if you have some Apple devices, entirely free. So I think that the value proposition is not very good. And to be honest, they have to find a way to bundle the app with a mobile provider. If they can do that and then maybe offer it for like a dollar or two, and then maybe for the rest of people drop the price to about $3, I think it will survive. But as it is, I think that the value proposition is not very attractive. So that's my brief review of the Quibi app. The user interface is really nice, though, like navigating through the series. There's suggestions for you, previews of shows that they have on there. It's really like really, really, really cool. Their brand imaging and everything is quite attractive. It's there are positives, but at the end of the day, it's all about value proposition, and I don't think they're winning there, because once we start adding up all of our bills, it's just not going to work. I mean, you got like your phone bill with like a robust internet plan, which you need for this, going to cost you what, $20, $30. Then you start to add, okay, I'm going to have Netflix, I'm going to have Disney Plus, and I'm going to have Amazon Prime, and then HBO Max is soon coming, and then you got Hulu, and so it's going to get to the point where we were kind of happy that, yay, we don't have to pay that huge cable bill. We have the freedom of the internet, and we're going to get a lot of these services at a cheaper rate. This stuff like this, it's just not gonna work in the new mindset. What do you guys think of what I've said about the Quibi app?
Well, I don't think you're wrong. But the one thing I would say that it has going for it is the 90-day free trial. I mean,
Yeah.
they got a 3-month. They're giving you a free window to see if they can get you hooked on their shows, and to see if you can find that amount of value. I just looked at the Canadian prices here. It looks like it's $4.99 ad free, or $4.99 with ads, or $7.99 ad free. $4.99 is a little more doable. I mean, in Canadian dollars are worth less than American, so that's like $3.50 US, right? So maybe $3 US with exchange right now. That's not unreasonable if you're willing to sit through a couple of ads, or if you want to pay a couple extra bucks and not have the ads. It just really depends on the content. And I took a quick look at their shows. I don't see anything there that really grabs me, but again, they give you a 90-day free trial. Maybe you'll find something in there if you're willing to sign up. I mean, have either of you guys signed up for the free trial?
I have. I actually have. Yeah.
And have you found
Um,
anything that grabbed your interest so far, or you not had a chance yet?
so now this is also the thing about having an app like Quibi. Since it's a mobile app, the only time that I really care to use it will be if I'm on the go. Because when I'm at home, I have a massive TV that I spent like thousands of dollars on. Like, why am I going to bury my head? And I actually have quite a decent size phone. I actually have a Samsung Note 10 Plus. So watching stuff on my phone is not like I'm not squinting my eyes to see. But my TV is much bigger than that. My TV is 65 inches. Like, so why am I going to be watching something on there, even if it's just 10 minutes? And I have like a massive TV where I can watch something that's going to be a lot better. Now, maybe if I'm, taking a dump, I'm gonna have
Yeah, you
Too much
settle in for
information, man.
10 minutes of entertainment. Maybe that's where this all came from. I mean, 10-minute pieces of information, right?
Well,
really,
It's not about your commute after all.
I think that's it's. I haven't checked it out yet, and I did the same thing that Paul. I took a look at like Steven Spielberg, and I know Kristen Bell's there. There's like a whole bunch of people that have invested into it, and there's definitely some stars. But I think where they I don't, for me, can't see this replacing HBO Max or Netflix or Disney Plus. I just don't see it. But for the ADD generation, maybe, because
That's what they need, yeah.
yeah, because like Paul, our kids, and like my nieces and nephews that are just getting into high school, getting into college, and even younger than them, they have no attention span. So everything is now, 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 now. Within 30 seconds, they're like, whatever, I'm now moving on to the next thing. It's one of the reasons why like Instagram, like all like newer, like Snapchat is popular because of that and hiding it from their parents, but also because it's like really quick. I only need the information in like 15 seconds, man. I don't give a shit about anything else. They tune out. So maybe they've nailed something here. I don't know. I don't know. And a lot of, especially younger people, consume media on mobile devices as opposed to a TV. In a lot of ways, it sucks when you're talking about cinematic experiences, and even the streaming services are giving us stuff like Lupe and I were talking about Castlevania and everything. You're getting this lush stuff. How much lush stuff are you going to get on this little 10-minute piece of shit? But I don't. I don't know though. I mean, it's possible this thing could really take off. I'm not selling it. I'm not going to sell it short yet. I'm going to say it's not for me. But with this generation, I'd say keep your minds open, guys. It's possible this thing could take off.
It's possible. I'm sure they've tested, and as I told you, like I actually think it's a brilliant idea, because when I was holding my phone and really going through the user experience and the fact that there's a lot of like series on there, and you can just watch something like real quick at the snap of your fingers, and just so for example, like
there you go.
I go to the gym and I'm watching like I'm playing like pickup basketball, and I'm waiting for to be up next or something like that. In that 10 minutes, I can just turn it on and just watch a series, and then or you're at your commute and you're waiting for the train to get to the station or the bus, or or you're in a taxi on the road, or something like that, or you have lunch, or you're in line, you're at the DMV waiting for someone. Like, it's actually like a dope idea, but I'm not sure of the value proposition, because it's not about its absolute cost. It's not expensive. Like $7.99, even at its full freight, is actually not expensive. But when it starts to get expensive is when you start to add it to the stuff that you have. Then you begin to think that, am I actually getting like the value that I want out of all these streaming packages? Because at the end of the day, we're not going to look at all these packages separately. We're going to look at them together. We're going to look at the fact that for my entertainment, I'm paying this for DC streaming service, I'm paying this for HBO Max, paying this for Disney Plus, and you add them all together, and then you're going to start to make decisions on the margin. And that's when the value proposition is going to start to come into play. Which one is adding more value into your life?
I think that's the big key. The big selling point of cutting the cord was that you'd spend a decent amount on internet, not a ton, but you get rid of your house phone. You'd get rid of that horrible cable package that they lock you into, where you have to get 400 channels that you never watch, but you can choose whatever entertainment you want now. Well, as all these companies start to gobble up content, and they're creating content too, I understand that, but as they start to gobble up content and carve it up, well, if I want to watch this, I have to have Warner Brothers / HBO Max. If I want to watch that, I have to have friggin' Marvel, Star Wars, Disney. If I want to watch that, I have to have this other service. Well, before you know it, you're back up to $200 a month again.
Yeah.
Then what's the point? So I agree with you. I think that's going to be the key. People are going to start looking and saying, you know what, I only want these 3 services, and the rest are going to get cut out.
All right. So, Christian, do you have anything in particular you want to talk about? I know we have some Marvel news. And your favorite blogger, your future wife, your girlfriend, Grace Randolph, gave us some scoops on Black Panther 2 and on what was the other, on Shang-Chi. Do you want to talk about those?
Hit me with them. I know I browsed through some of the stuff that she was saying, but I don't want to sit there and say that I'm well versed on it. So, go ahead.
So it's not anything super detailed or complex. It's just that for Shang-Chi,
yes,
it says the general plot is going to be that the Mandarin sends him to a martial arts tournament, and he has to battle all these warriors. And she made an insinuation that there would be Marvel characters from their like deeper roster. They will make cameos in that tournament. And so the big thing that she was kind of pointed to was that this is the plot of Mortal Kombat. A hero goes to a tournament, and in that tournament, he is asked to battle all these guys all the way to the big bad boss, and the person who sends him to the tournament is the villain. So it's like a Shang Tsung, Liu Kang kind of thing. And so, what do you think of that plot? Do you think that it's a ripoff? Do you think that what do you think about the Mortal Kombat movie is coming out in the same year? I think Mortal Kombat comes out early in the year, maybe February, and then Shang-Chi is supposed to come out in the summer. What are your thoughts?
Which, by the way, they could potentially help one another. I mean, what do I know? But that's possible. I mean, I think that there's possibility there that they could build off one another too with the excitement. People love Mortal Kombat. Come on, they do. People love Mortal Kombat. And martial arts stuff, you start selling it as a martial arts movie, even though it'll have the MCU flair that you like or don't like. I think you can then. I do believe that there's a possibility that they can play off one another positively. I think it's funny. Everything Kevin Feige does now, people, he stole it. He stole it. He's ripping it off something else. He's also digging into years and years worth of comics. Everything's a stolen product. For the love of God, it's like what Microsoft did was stolen from Pocket, freaking whatever. I forgot what those things were called, PDAs. And then Apple was a stolen product from Microsoft, and Google is a stolen product from Apple. Stop. Stop. I've had enough. Stop. That's what people say. So if he makes anything with a tournament and anything with martial arts, it's either going to be Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat that he's ripping it off. Come on, enough. I've had enough. So does it sound any more or less exciting than before? Not really. It really doesn't. I'm not like dying to see Shang-Chi. I'm actually more interested in Eternals than I am, because I think Eternals has more of the Game of Thrones political, fantasy kind of gothic background to it, and really getting into like the cosmic part of the universe and the immortals, as opposed to Shang-Chi, who a lot of people seem to be pumped for. He's a cool character, but I'm kind of like, I'll go see it. I probably will go see it because it's an MCU movie, but so this doesn't really like. I'm not jumping up and down on my laptop now that you guys have told me this. It's not like, ooh, yay, I'm all giddy because it's like, Mortal Kombat. It's cool news, but do I think it's a stolen product? Nah, I don't think so. It's the storyline. The bad thing, if you're a comic fan, though, I'll tell you this much: you guys, whether you've seen Iron Man 3 or not, the MCU has already fucked up the Mandarin royally. They've already screwed it up.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more they can screw up the Mandarin. He was that. Iron Man 3 is not my favorite.
Iron Man 3 is. I think that was Iron Man 3 was when I started falling out of love with that was a year where I had like a divorce from the MCU, to be sincere, and it also had to do with Man of Steel, because that was when Man of Steel came out, and that's when the DC hate versus Marvel thing started. Iron Man 3 got amazing reviews. Meanwhile, Man of Steel trash, and it was the whole it's too moody, call it. So that's where
let's
that
be honest, Lupe. I apologize for interrupting you. I think Iron Man 3 rode the Avengers the wave. It made $1 billion because everybody was hyped after what happened with Avengers. It's an okay movie. It's not great.
For those of us who know the Mandarin, that was so, because it set up what could have been a really good movie in terms of, we're dealing with the specter of terrorism at that time, and I was like, Marvel is going to deal with terrorists and the whole, and then they just turned it into a slapstick comedy routine. Oh no, I was not pleased. I was not pleased at all. I'll let you know. But obviously the media proclaimed it to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Man of Steel is a terrible movie that deserves to burn in hell, and Zack Snyder's wrong prince for Superman. That's, whatever. But I would like to know what Paul thinks about the plot for Shang-Chi. And Paul, what's your relation to Mortal Kombat? Are you looking forward to that one? Do you think that there's...
Well, you know what, you know what, guys, I'm going to keep this pretty brief because I mean, my memories of Mortal Kombat are old. I mean, 25 years outdated. I liked the game, years ago, and I'm interested in seeing the Mortal Kombat. Was it Scorpion's Revenge, the animated film we talked about a few weeks back?
Yeah, come on, man.
It comes out in a few days. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, that looks really good. I'm actually really looking forward to that. But that being said, I don't know anything about Shang-Chi. I haven't heard anything about the MCU version. I don't know anything about the character. It's after my time. It was not something I was ever aware of. And I'm not familiar enough with Mortal Kombat to even know how Shang-Chi might rip off the Mortal Kombat story. So I really don't have anything to say on this particular story. I missed sorry, I lost my connection there for a second, and I missed the early part of your conversation, but I don't think I have anything of value to add on this topic. So we'll wait and see. But if they're ripping off Mortal Kombat, I probably wouldn't know it anyway, but I am looking forward to Mortal Kombat.
I think the main concern that Grace Randall had, and what a lot of people have in terms of quote unquote ripping off, having similar storylines. So, for example, she cited the fact that Civil War ripped off Batman v Superman's hero versus hero storyline, which is actually a fact. Like, it's something that they kind of wanted to do, but Kevin Feige was like, nah, y'all don't do this storyline, because obviously he doesn't like taking risks, although he will tell you that he does, because they're very good at spinning narrative. But that's a story for another day. But when Batman v Superman was announced, the Russos went to him and were like, look, they're doing Batman v Superman. We need to do Civil War. And then he gave the green light. Like, this is not a rumor. It's out there in trades and stuff like that. So that plagued Batman v Superman. Like, the direct comparisons actually derailed Batman v Superman and the DCU from there on. And then when you have stuff also like Captain Marvel is very similar to Green Lantern. So whenever Green Lantern comes out, there's going to be that comparison. And then also the Eternals. The Eternals are 100% Kevin Feige's attempt to make a New Gods kind of, fantasy space opera epic before DC does the New Gods. And if you think I'm joking about that, just look at all his references to Jack Kirby, leaning heavily into Jack Kirby, when we know that Jack Kirby's New Gods, that's like his legacy. So by the time the New Gods come to the screen, Feige's already going to have milked the Jack Kirby connection, that legacy connection to these intergalactic ancient beings. And so the concern that some people have is just that Marvel is wrecking the landscape for everything else and just being this force is demolishing everything in its path. And nobody can have a space to themselves, because Kevin Feige is going to take those storylines. He's going to do them, and with all the goodwill that he has, the huge machine that they have there, it's going to be, at least the narrative is that it's going to be done better, and it's going to make the other ones not do so well or
That's
fail,
the
or you know,
that's
Well,
the
that's
it's
the
danger.
concern.
Is this the
it's a
sucking of
legitimate
the
concern. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. The sucking of the oxygen out of the room, even coming from an MCU fan, I think is part of the problem. And when I say, come on, when I say it like that, no,
Mhm.
obviously the BvS versus Civil War part of it. When I say rip, it's not like Civil War is not a rip off of the storyline. They're different
That's
movies.
true,
They're
yeah.
completely different. But
Mhm.
the idea is saying, well, we need to. I applaud the Russos for doing what they wanted to do, but
Mhm.
then Kevin being like, well, no, you know what, Disney, Marvel, we need to be carving out this sphere. This is us. We need to make the
Mhm.
money. It's us. And it's the same with the Eternals. The Eternals are an old school comic property,
Mhm. They
but
are.
they don't need to be made right now.
Mhm.
But if New Gods are coming out, well, okay, maybe we have to, because guess what? We can do it, quote unquote, better, and we
Better.
can
That's
make
right.
more money. And they got the Disney machine behind them that are going to do it. So yeah, obviously, guys, even coming from an MCU fan, the sucking up of all the oxygen out of the room is not necessarily a good thing here. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's a concern. That's all. At the end of the day, I think that we just need to the what I hope is that the media will allow these
Good
movies to,
luck.
and that's the big thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the
Good
big
luck.
thing for, like, I have no problem with Civil War existing, and with Civil War existing at the time that Batman v Superman existed. I have zero problem with that. Like, it's allowed, but the direct comparisons
Mhm.
is the problem, because someone is going to, hopefully for our benefit, they're going to tell their stories differently, because obviously we don't want a copy paste job,
Right.
if,
Right.
even if you don't do it on purpose. We want them to have different tones, different nuances, different stories, and we would like to be able to enjoy both of them. Or
Mhm.
even if you don't enjoy one, just let it exist, and people who enjoy it to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but the comparison, in order to drive one down, is what we don't need. And we have seen through history that that comparison is always pitted in favor of Marvel. And so a lot of people grew resentful
Yeah.
of the situation. Just, we don't need that. Personally, I'm not very concerned about Marvel having actually, to be sincere, it actually makes me even more interested in Shang-Chi, to
Mhm.
be 100% sincere, because we should note this, that the Mortal Kombat storyline is gotten from Enter the Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
my wife, who's a huge Bruce Lee fan, has actually pointed that out to me quite a few times.
Yep.
That's crazy, because she is my wife is a massive Bruce Lee fan. I'm
She's a
married
good
to a strange woman.
one. She's a good one. So it's not like Mortal Kombat owns that storyline,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's just, the timing of it, and but I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they both do it. Hopefully we don't get these weird comparisons that
Right.
try to destroy one over the other. And I think it sets up, for something that's going to be a martial arts focused movie, it sets up the best scenario. It's the best scenario for exhibiting real good kick ass martial arts.
Mhm.
And anyway, I'm really looking forward to Mortal Kombat. Like, boys, you're not gonna hear anything else from me. I'm gonna be a Mortal Kombat stan, going crazy, because I just love the mythology of that universe. For our last topic of the day, it's also a Marvel centric
Mhm.
uh, talk, and it's another scoop from Grace. We don't know if it's real or not, but we'll go on the assumption that it is. And she says that the villain for Black Panther 2 is going to be Namor. And so she also made the comparison that it's going to be an Aquaman versus Namor thing. It's going to be Atlantis versus Atlantis. How it's going to go, blah, blah, blah. Kevin Feige is at it again. So this time, let's start with Paul. Paul might not have too much to say about this. Paul, what do you think of this as the villain for Black Panther 2? I'm not sure if you're a big fan of the first Black Panther movie. What would you have liked the villain to be, or do you think that this is the way to go?
Yeah, I thought Black Panther was another mediocre entry in the Marvel lineup. I didn't love it.
Oh, big
Didn't hate it.
surprise.
Yeah. I thought it was way overrated. But I mean, it's fine, I guess. Namor is interesting. I mean, it's different. if Namor's going to be the villain, I immediately start thinking Throne of Atlantis, like with the Amazons versus the Atlanteans, right? So I'm feeling some of those same vibes. I don't know if that's a legitimate assessment or not. I mean, I don't know enough about it to even base that opinion on anything other than just that's the first thought that jumps to my mind. But I mean, it sounds interesting. I'll wait and see. Marvel certainly built up the goodwill to be able to throw the budget at doing an underwater world appropriately. Now, if he's bringing the fight to land, maybe they don't have to spend their money there. Maybe it's more on land. But again, I don't know anything about what the premise is. This is just a rumor, I believe, that Namor is going to be the villain. So, hey, I mean, it's a new character to the cinematic universe. One that was, certainly a popular enough character when I was growing up and has been around a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see how they bring the character to the big screen. At least Black Panther was on the less comedic side of the Marvel films, so that gives me some hope that it won't be a big knee-slapping joke fest. But who knows? Maybe they feel comfortable enough with the character now that they can turn it into comedy, and who knows? We'll see. But I'll reserve judgment. Let's put it that way. I'm mildly intrigued, not super excited, but interested more so than in a lot of the other stuff I've heard coming out of the MCU. So it's, if you consider my already low sort of excitement level for the MCU, this would probably be in the upper third of MCU news that would get me moderately interested on a relative scale. Let's put it that way.
All right. I'll go before, and we'll have Christian wrap us up. I loved Black Panther. I really did.
Yeah.
Do I think it's the perfect movie? No, it's just a couple of tweaks here and there would have made it an insanely good movie for me. Now, that could be because I am of African descent. I'm African American. I'm an African in diaspora. So I was able to connect to a lot of the political themes that were woven into its narrative. And trust me, there are a lot of really heavy themes that are woven into that movie in the same way that, you see in films like The Winter Soldier and Batman v Superman. Although obviously Batman v Superman takes it to another level, but I'm very consistent in that if you really take the time to comment on the world that we're living in, whether it's from a sociological perspective or political perspective or philosophical or scientific perspective, just something that's real, something that's of great concern to us as a people, I would rate those movies higher because they have something to say. They're not just existent for vacuous entertainment and fun. The only downsides are that sometimes the VFX were quite bad, quite horrendously bad, which is ironic because the movie was put up for VFX for Oscars, but that's another discussion unto itself. And then there were, some of those, your typical Marvel jokes that it was like so unnecessary, but you could tell that it's formulaic. It's like, this is how we make it lighter and family friendly, blah blah blah. If it was a bit more serious, I would have liked that. And if the cinematography was better, because I actually don't think cinematography was actually great. It could have been better, especially for someone like Ryan Coogler. I was disappointed that it did not have any authorial stamp on it and felt and looked just like a Marvel movie. I think this was the perfect film, the perfect vehicle to do almost whatever you want with it, and it'd still have goodwill, even from people who tend to knock down anything that's blockbustery that tries to be auteur. So for a villain, there's a character in Black Panther that's called M'Baku, and he was one of the tribesmen of the different tribes in the nation of Wakanda. And he had a little hint of beef with T'Challa, and I thought that was a very interesting thread to pull on, and it could be pulled on in the future. So I was hoping that we'd get a deeper exploration of Wakanda as a country, because I didn't think that we explored Wakanda a lot in this one, and I thought it would be interesting to have a bit of a civil war, like an internal conflict, as opposed to the external conflict that they were having with the villain, Killmonger, and with the whole hiding themselves from the outside world. That was who I was hoping, because that character was actually like a really good character, physically imposing, physically dominating. So he seems like a very good physical counterweight to King T'Challa, and just internal conflict. The greatest enemies within. That is a very dramatic angle to tell a story from. In terms of Namor, I don't necessarily agree with Grace Randolph that, you've had Aquaman, so like, what are they going to do? Never bring Namor to the screen and just bury the character? Like, there's nothing you can do. The only thing is that I would hope that they don't. I mean, they can do whatever they want. But if I was in control, I wouldn't advise them to really try to flesh out the character and make him like a focal point and him become a hero, because Aquaman has kind of like been there, done that. But as an antagonist, absolutely, bring him on. And as Paul said, having vibes of Throne of Atlantis, the Amazons versus the Atlanteans, and have, the Wakandans versus the Atlanteans. Like, you can have that conflict between two secretive nations. I think that there's meat on those bones. So obviously it depends on how they do it, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm not excited about it. I'd have been very excited with M'Baku, but I think it's something that can be done, and I hope that Ryan Coogler is given creative freedom to do his thing. So Christian, could you wrap us up? What do you think?
I mean, I'm with you. The top Black Panther is a top third MCU movie
Absolutely.
for me. I love that movie. I really do enjoy that movie a lot, and I love the acting in it. There's so much about it that I think, again, it suffers from. It's trying to say a lot of things, and it suffers from a lot of other MCU movies that try to say many things and try to say it in 5 minutes instead of trying to concentrate on the entire 2-hour movie, making a commentary about something. It quickly glances over some of the commentaries that it's trying to make to get to the action and to get to the connection to the larger universe. That's where it fails to me. And that's why it's not like a top 3 MCU movie for me, but is absolutely in the upper third. And I truly enjoy that movie. And it can still get formulaic with the hero versus villain. Eric Killmonger is a fantastic villain. Fantastic. Not only in the comics, he's done really well in that movie. And I like Michael B. Jordan's performance there too. And he's great throughout the whole movie, but he's wasted at the end, which I think is sad too. And the Civil War aspect of Wakanda that you alluded to before is more interesting to me than Eric versus T'Challa. I just think it's more interesting. If they had fleshed out Eric versus T'Challa more, maybe then it would have been a little bit better. But that's besides the point. I think that here's the deal. If rumors are to be believed, Kevin Feige and his team, not just him, his team, have had stories. If different characters were going to return to their fold, they've had stories going way back, and Namor is one of those guys. They've been itching to get the X-Men. They've been itching to get Spider-Man. They've been itching to get some of these characters like Namor. Now, Namor has been called Marvel's first mutant because the writing for him goes back a long way in the comics, but he's not as old as En Sabah. He's not as old as Selene, Mystique, Wolverine, Destiny. There's a bunch of other mutants that are older than him. Me personally, guys, I think this is a great way to, number one, introduce mutants into the MCU by having a hidden world, a world that's been existing kind of outside. They've already jumped 5 years into the future with Endgame. And everything's all fucked up with Endgame because they played games with their Back to the Future, kind of timeline. So everything's all fucked up now. But you have this mutant that may have an entire empire that exists outside, has remained hidden, and then on top of that, you actually could potentially have an existential threat to Wakanda. Wakanda is seen as almost indestructible unless they destroy themselves from within. So it would be really cool for me to see that, because that, I think, is where Black Panther needs to go, because Wakanda could take over the entire world if they wanted to, because they're, with their technology. So for me, yes, I'm excited because I think this could potentially enter mutants in the future. It expands the world of the MCU. I agree with you guys. Do I think they're going to make these crazy commentaries on society? Probably not. They'll do probably what they did in Black Panther. They'll make you think, you'll watch the movie and go, huh, that's an interesting point. But then they're going to be, you're going to have a war between Wakanda, and the Submariner and everything. And then it'll probably fall by the wayside. I'll enjoy it. But if you wanted something that's going to make a deeper commentary on our lives, it might not be there. But yeah, from that respect, I'm excited about it. And come on with the stolen thing. Dude, it's Namor. You kidding me? It's Namor. You know how old that guy is? He's been there forever, and they've been itching to get this freaking guy in there. I think this is a great way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have no like Namor is a legacy character. He's yes, he is. He and Aquaman are, sort of like, oh, this is DC's aquatic hero, and this is Marvel's aquatics. Kind of like DC has their speedster, Marvel has their speedster. Sometimes those happen. When it comes to legacy characters, you just have to give them the leeway to exist, and hopefully they're allowed to exist, as we discussed, without these annoying toxic comparisons.
Yeah.
And hopefully also they don't do a copy and paste job.
That's
they're told in different. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
so those are our topics for the day. That was a bomb-ass conversation. Episode number 25 was more of, what we've been doing, what we watched, and today we talked more about newsy kind of items. So we hope that this was entertaining for you guys listening out there. We hope you had as much fun as we do. Discuss with us, chat with us. Tell us what you think about the possibility of these villains and these storylines for these Marvel movies. If you've downloaded Quibi, talk to us about it and tell us like how you're experiencing it so far. And if you haven't, you should. It's like really simple. I installed it in less than 5 minutes, and you have a 3-month free trial, and you can cancel anytime before that without being charged a single dime. And also, if you have anything to say about the Batman v Superman commentary, director commentaries in general, we'd like to hear about that. So on our way out, Christian, would you like to say goodbye to the people? Tell them where they can find you as well.
Yes, absolutely. Repeating what we said in the past, everybody please stay healthy, stay safe. God bless you all. God bless your families. This is a lot of fun talking about what we talk about, but taking care of your families, especially during this COVID-19 crisis, is important. Let's keep talking about this stuff because we want all of this to continue to exist when we get to the other side of this pandemic. As always, you can find me on both Twitter and on Instagram. I'm at the same place, at chart6363.
Absolutely. And a little bit of a plug here. 3 of us, we're going to watch Mortal Kombat, and we're going to do a review on it. So that's something to whet. Yeah, that's something to whet the appetite of our listeners. Look forward to that. We'll get that out to you like ASAP. And Paul, would you like to say goodbye to the people? Tell them where they can find you so they can send you all our hate mail. I'd like our audience to know that our designated inbox for hate mail is in Paul's address.
It's at @_Paul_P. That's the inbox. So send it on over. As always, feel free to continue the conversation through Twitter or leave us a comment on YouTube. We'll be happy to continue the conversation there as well. So enjoy talking with you guys again, and looking forward to the next one, guys.
Sure thing. And as a plug as well, Paul and I, we've got a review for The Hunt coming to you guys shortly. You guys should definitely listen to that one. We're going to have a lot to say about it. And quite interestingly, just to whet your appetite, Paul dislikes comedies. Like, he's so finicky and picky about comedies. But the Hunt is a bit of a comedy. It's a political satire, and he enjoyed this one. So he has a lot to say about it, as do I. And I have been yours, as per usual, Lupe. You can find me on social media, Twitter at LiveLoveLupe, Vero also at LiveLoveLupe. It's been my pleasure to talk to you guys, and until next time, stay exiled.